So I have been very passionate about the power situation in the country. It's no more Dum Sor. It is doom, doom, and then so. And sometimes we don't even know when we would be going off, and then we go off. And I thought, you know what, we can sit in the studio and talk to officials on the phone, but why not get to the source? What exactly is the situation and what is being done? So that is what has sent me out today, and I'm at the headquarters of Gridco. Fortunately for us, really, the boss here, he's been so amazing, Mr. William Amuna, and he's given us access to a place where we would usually not be permitted. And I'm happy that we are in the systems control room of Gridco. Really is a center of a lot of things. Let me introduce to you the person in charge of this place. His name is Frank Ochery, and his manager, systems control at Gridco. So here we go with Frank, coming to tell us exactly what happens here in this particular office. Frank, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
In fact, you should be saying I am welcome, because you've allowed me into your space.
Well, it's allowed sometimes.
Yeah. Okay.
So you are welcome to the System Control Center.
All right. Thank you very much. We see a lot of computers. We see figures. First of all, let's focus on this one. What is that?
Good. And thank you for your question. What we see here, we call it the video wall. What we are seeing on it is what we call the grid, the Ghana grid. It is an electrical diagram that shows the entire transmission network, including the connectivities of our transmission lines, and then how the generating plants on the Ghana power system are connected to the grid, together with all the substations at the various places in Ghana where we give power to consumers and distributing companies within Ghana. Okay. So typically that is what it is. This is a real-time system. What I mean by real-time is that all the things we see are real-time, showing the real statuses of the equipment as they are on the power system out there in the countrywide. And so they show us the real status, like the circuit breakers, the transmission lines, the transformers, and the generators. All of them, we see the real status.
Okay.
This helps us if the status of any equipment changes at any moment in time. Just from this sitting, we are able to see. Okay. And so typically this is the one place in the whole Ghana power system where we see the entire network at one sitting. The whole
Ghana in one place. But let me focus on this figure, which is big enough. System frequency. What is that? System frequency. Right now we have 49.87. It keeps changing.
Good. System frequency, it's a parameter of electricity. The electricity that we send out from the generating plants to through our substations to our various homes. From our O-level physics, we call it alternating current electricity. There are two types. We have the direct current electricity, which is like what you get out of a battery, like a car battery. But the alternating current electricity, it has, it alternates, the amplitude, it alternates. And this is the frequency of the Ghana power system. The nominal frequency is 50 hertz. But in real time, you would sit at 50 plus or minus 5%.
And we're doing below 50?
Well, we are below 50 right now,
So in normal language, we would say that it's a reflection of our not generating a lot of power. Is that it?
Yes. If demand and supply are in balance, you would have frequency sitting at exactly 50. But
let's as we're talking, we'll also just move to this, because I see that if my camera person would help us, we've got This, I don't know how you call it.
This is an operating console.
Okay. We've got about 3 operating consoles,
Yeah.
apart from the bigger one.
Yeah.
Okay. What is this one as well?
Right. We talked about the grid. We talked about having substations all across the country, transmission lines which basically send the electricity that's generated at the various generating plants to the various localities where we have use of them. The grid is widespread across the country, but we need a center like this where you coordinate the activities on the power system. And to do that coordination activity, you need such a console which pulls the information from across the substations all across the country and makes it available for the operator to have control. There is no use sitting here if you don't have control. So the operator who dispatches the power system must have such high-tech computerized system that enables him not only to monitor but also to actually control the equipment and the installations that are across the power system. And that is what this system here typically enables us. As we look here on this screen, we see the system generation picture. There are so many different overviews that the operator has and can use to operate the system. But if you look at this one, for instance, we have all the generating plants in the Ghana power system. And we are seeing each of them and how much generation we have on them at this very moment in time.
Okay.
And this helps him to see at a certain. Apart from that, he also has the ability from station to station to actually intervene, to either take out or to bring in an equipment as is necessary.
Okay, so big question. What is generating what for us? I mean, what is available? Because the ordinary person would normally hear Asogli, would hear Bui and other big names.
Yeah.
But what does it mean? How much are we generating? What is down and what is up?
There are various generating plants that we have on the Ghana power system now. We have Akosombo. We have Akosombo, which we have had since Kwame Nkrumah's time, generating for us. If we look on the screen here, you can see Akosombo. If I can use the cursor from here, you can see Akosombo plant. It has got 6 generators and generating for us right now. We have about 542 megawatts that is generating for us. We also have the Pong generating station, which is the second hydro generating plant, also generating for us about 114. We also have Sunon Asogle, which is generating now with 2 units out of 6. We have Bui, we have TT1PP's VRS plant in Tema. Senate is another plant in Tema. It's an IPP. We have MRP T3 at Abuaze. We have TICO in Takrady. TAPCO is VRS plant in Abuaze, and all the others. So this shows
But not
us,
all is active. Not
yes,
all is active.
Not all of them are
Some
active.
of your plants are down.
Yes. If you go to Akosombo, where we started from, you can see that out of 6, we are running 4 units. And this is because the hydrology was bad this year, and the water level is down. And so we have to manage the use of the water that is left in the dam so that we are able to stretch it until the next catchment season is on. So
here's what I want you to explain.
Right.
We deal with ECG, Electricity Company of Ghana. You're a Gridco.
Right.
What's your relationship with ECG?
Good. We in Gridco, we are the grid operators. We operate the transmission lines and the substations that convey the power that has been generated. You can segregate the electricity industry, say, into 3 parts. We have the bulk suppliers, that's the generators, like VRE. VRA, and then Asogle, as you mentioned. So they generate the bulk power. And when they generate it, it's still within their station. And so we operate the transmission network that transports, let's use the word transports the bulk power that has been generated from the generating centers to the user centers, the communities where we have use of them. So typically you have Achimota substation, we have Malam substation.
Who would be managing those stations? Gridco?
Yes, those stations. So from putting the power on the transmission lines at the generating point, we operate the transmission lines and the substations as well as the control center. So that's Gridco's part. Now you asked about ECG. When we have transported the bulk power to the user centers, say Achimota, we give the power off to ECG, and so typically we call them a distributor, and they send the power from the bulk center into the various homes, into the factories and the facilities which have direct use of the electricity that's generated.
So who would we hold responsible when we go off?
Well, thank you for that. When you go off, it depends on many things. There are many reasons why you could go off. If we're talking about the load shedding, which is going on now. And
just not to be rude, we also want to appreciate this beautiful place that you have. So as you explain, we can just be going along.
Thank you very much. And this is, I'm glad to say it's a state-of-the-art control center, which was commissioned somewhere in 2012.
And so if you can just move with us.
So typically we give the power to ECG and then they will send it to you in your homes.
So if I don't have the power, who do I hold responsible? Because ECG would normally say, I can only give what I have. But you are given to ECG.
Well, we transport to ECG. And so there are many different reasons why you could go off. If you take first of all the load shedding which we have been on for now, the load shedding is precipitated by a shortage in supply, which means that if you put
generation.
Yes, if you put together all the generating capacity that we have as a nation right now, it is not up to the amount of the demand that we have on the grid right now, and that requires that some amount of demand must be cut off in order to balance the demand and the supply. But there could be other instances where if the feeder that is coming to your facility or your line, either through a rainstorm or through maybe human activity, there is some damage to that equipment. You could have outages that come from the distribution network, which are not emanating from generation, neither from the transmission. You could also have instances where there could be a transmission constraint, where either a transmission line or a transformer develops a fault, and therefore for a moment we have transmission constraints, and that can end up in shortage of supply to you. But typically, with regards to the load shedding that we have been experiencing, that is due to generation or supply constraint, and so that is coming way up from the generation level. And so it's a shortage in generation that requires then that we manage the demand so that at every point in time demand matches with the supply. So you cannot say it's an ECG problem, but they have to manage it with us. All of us are managing it together.
Why don't we have a timetable? In fact, why don't we have a new timetable since the power cuts hasn't stopped?
Yeah, that's a good question, but I can assure you that there is an inter-utility committee on the load shedding which is meeting this week, and they are working out to come out with a new timetable. You know, you put a timetable for a limited period so that at the end of the period you assess. You assess how it has gone, what improvements have come, and then that advises the new schedule that you send out.
Is it getting better or is it getting worse?
Well, I must say a lot of work is being done. And so there is a lot of hope that it would get better. A lot of work is being done.
Is hope enough?
In the sense that, well, hope is good.
You know, and usually when I'm talking about power cuts, I like to put myself, you know, in the mix.
Right.
When I experience it, it can be very frustrating, really frustrating. You know, like you're rushing home so that you can do everything that you can do before 6.
Right.
Because you know after 6 you're going off. That's when you're going off.
Yeah.
So the question of when will the problem be solved? That's like the biggest that we need a specific response to.
Right.
When will it be solved?
Yes, and thank you for the question. And you know, TICO has had one generating plant down as part of the works that they are doing to bring in an additional unit, which will be an addition to the fleet that we have in the state, in the nation. That we expect within January to come online. If that comes, it's going to help.
This is 14th of January.
Right.
We're still expecting.
So we still have some days left in January. And I mean, we have, they're working with all the experts, not only from Ghana. So we are believing that they are doing a good work. We keep checking with them on a daily basis. And we are hoping that they will be able to wrap up what they are doing. They've gone far with the works that they are doing. That is going to come in with the 100 megawatts on the existing unit that has been down. At the end of it, they are going to also commission the steam turbine generator, which they are now going to bring as an addition. That is going
Commissioning is the start of building a certain plant, isn't it?
No,
or
it's the
commissioning
end.
Is the end.
Commissioning is bringing it into operation. They have been building from way back 2 years ago. If you remember, sometime last year we had to actually take some lines out briefly in Takrady for the stack of the parts to cross to the location in in Takrady. And so they have worked, the plant is now installed and they are soon going to commission. Commissioning is just the final works to bring the unit into operation.
Okay, so now we have a TICO deadline of, say, January ending.
Yes.
And that would boost. So what would it mean?
That would bring in some capacity.
Okay, but how explain or translate that for us in real life situation? Would it mean you're going off 6 a.m., 6 p.m. again? Or it means that it will be reviewed and we'll be going off shorter than we are experiencing today?
I believe that the new schedule would come out at the end of the work by the Inter-Utility Committee. And when the unit comes online, the committee is going to continue to work and is going to review the situation as at that time. I need to say that the hydrology in Akosombo is bad, and so
what is that?
The amount of water in the dam, you know, because we have had a crisis, we have had to do a lot of generation from Akosombo, and so the water level has come down, and therefore we have to manage the use of the lake to keep the water until the next catchment season. And so
let me ask you this. Sometimes we joke around and we say, can we fetch water? I mean, we have plenty water tankers. Can we just fetch water and go and pour it in the dam? Wouldn't it help?
We can fetch water and put in it, but I believe it would not help much. If you take the lake, the surface area is big. The volumes of water you need to put in it is so much.
Is the weather we're experiencing today, I don't know if you may know, would it be affecting the dam in any way?
Well,
the dry weather
conditions. Dry weather, yes, it has an evaporation factor, and the dam studies team have a lot of calculations and analysis they do, and they factor in the amount of evaporation. Evaporation is inevitable when you come to a dam because it's an open water body, and therefore if you have a harmattan, it is going to evaporate some amount, but typically the amount of water that goes by evaporation is small with relation to how much you use when it comes to generation. So yes, there will be some evaporation, but that is not the worry.
So it is possible that when we get this power that you're expecting from TICO,
yes,
we will still be experiencing what we're experiencing, because perhaps Akosombo would have even gone lower than it is today. It would mean that the situation will be the same.
Well, we are managing it as we said, and so it will come to give some relief. In addition to that,
because, and the reason I ask you this is the biggest generator is Akosombo.
Yes.
But there are fears that the levels, the water levels keep going down. The level is worrying. So even if we have a boost from TICO and the water level is still really low, it means we haven't really solved anything.
I wouldn't put it that way. What we are saying is that, yes, there is some amount of generation that we could have that we are not taking because we have to manage the dam. And that is part of the work that we are doing even right now. As we are speaking now, you see that we are running 4 out of 6 generators that we have in Akosombo. That is part of managing the lake, so that we don't overdraft it. But quite apart from the additional generation that we are going to have coming from TICO, we are also expecting the VRA plant that they are putting up at POM thermal plant. It also is going to come in by the end of the first quarter to bring in some additional capacity. Quite apart from that, the government through the Ministry of Power has made inroads and efforts, and they are bringing in some emergency generation to the tune of over 250 megawatts, which is all going to come in sometime in the first half of this year. And all that is going to come in to help to arrest the supply situation, so that hopefully if we get all that coming in, then we should be able to tackle the deficit situation.
Amazing. Very interesting things you've said, in fact. But I will still ask, when would Dum Sor end?
I would rather put it this way. We've talked about the generation that we are looking to coming into the system. If all that generation comes into play as we have scheduled them, then I am confident that we are going to see the end of this load shedding. And so I believe that what's important is to see that the effort to bring in this generation, additional generation, sees the light of the day and comes online, so that we can all put an end to this load shedding. Is
it possible that the evening load shedding would be shortened? I mean, whose decision would that be, for instance?
If you say shortened, first of all,
so instead of us doing the 12 hours, we do 6 hours.
Right. That may not be helpful if there is a deficit over the periods. Mind you, the load shedding is not the same throughout the day. Every dispatch period, the dispatch period is an hour. And so for the 24-hour periods of every day, we calculate the amount of deficit, and we determine the amount of relief that is needed at that time. And so that 12-hour was determined because it was realized that over the 12-hour period, there is a need for some level of relief. And so if you decide to take off the relief from some periods of the day, then you may end up in demand outstripping supply. You don't want to enter into that.
Okay, so finally, you would know, this new timetable that we're expecting, would it be the same as the one we're on right now?
I cannot say until it comes out, but I believe that it's going to optimize whatever generating resources we have.
This is, I mean, you have all the answers. This is the sports.
Well, what we see is real time, and it changes by the moment. And so you need to assert, and this is planning.
So if the timetable was coming out, like, say, Friday,
right,
you could easily predict how the schedule will be, wouldn't you?
Well, we have an input that we make to coming out with a timetable.
Okay.
Basically, the timetable is generated by the Inter-Utility Committee, advised by the supply availabilities that are determined by all the different generating plants that we have on the grid. And so it's not for one person to determine. It is for the whole stakeholder group, for the committee to come up with it.
I'm told that industry is not particularly happy with the schedule.
Well, typically, just like every individual is not happy that you are going off. You talked about it.
Yeah, but for us, you would think, oh, they talk, so let them talk. They will say, but for industry, especially if they make a move and come and meet you, you will do something about it, right?
Well, there are meetings with the industries. I mean, the amount of load shedding that we are putting on the industries was not just autocratically determined. There were meetings that were held at the ministry, at the auspices of the ministry, together with the industries, and the agreements were arrived at in that regard.
But you wouldn't tell us what has been agreed, would you?
Sorry?
You wouldn't tell us what has been agreed, would you?
Well, I mean, until now, the industries have been giving up to 104 megawatt relief, and that has helped a lot, and we are looking forward to how much we would take.
Would you give them more?
I wouldn't be able to say yes or no, but it depends on how much. You know, what we do is a lot of engineering. It's not based on discretion. You do the analysis, you determine the supply, you determine the demand, if there is a deficit, and then you determine the deficit.
Do you go off where you live?
I do.
You're on at 6 a.m., 6 p.m.,
Let me tell you, yesterday night I was off.
How does it make, I mean, how do you feel knowing that you work here? I mean, you have a lot of power. You could have decided that you wouldn't allow us in. How do you feel when you go off?
I must say it's not the best feeling, I mean, that you have when your power goes out.
Oh, maybe you have a plant generator at home.
Unfortunately, I don't have a generator. I built an inverter, which I have to bring up again.
Okay, so you don't feel what we feel.
But right now, that one is not up. So when it goes off, my lights are off, and I have to sleep. Yeah, but I know that it's necessary for us to manage the situation until the additional capacity comes online. And that is where we are grateful to all Ghanaians and the industries for the support we have had. We know that it's not been a pleasant situation having to go off at certain times. Some industries have probably not been able to produce up to capacity because of the load shedding.
Yeah.
But we are believing that with the coming of the generation that we are expecting, we should be able to see the end of this load shedding.
Okay, can you put the grid cook up? Can you put it somewhere for a minute? And I've said it on record, so your bosses would know that you're not speaking for Gridco now. Okay. What would be your advice for individuals as a technical person? Should I be looking for an alternative so that even when the power situation gets better, I may not care about that? I mean, what's the way forward for individuals if we don't want to look up to, the general power?
Maybe let me put it this way. I would say that part of the reason why we are in this level of deficit is because we are generating to serve a not very efficient load. I'm talking with respect to energy conservation. Some air conditioners that are in use, some freezers, some appliances that people import. The not very efficient appliances are a little cheaper on the market, and so sometimes there is always a tendency to buy the cheaper equipment. And the advice I would give is that let's all endeavor when we go out there to buy energy efficient appliances, and also to resort to energy conservation practices. In these times of energy crisis, it's not helpful to have your outside lights on at midday, for instance, and it's not helpful.
Sometimes the poles are on throughout the day.
Well, that is also not helpful if they are on, and we have to talk about that. And so all that is what we can do to help to manage. I mean, I've been to places where I've seen people have air conditioners on and nobody is in the place, and that is not helpful.
Should I be looking at getting an inverter or, you know, solar or something?
Well,
they say solar is the way to go in the future.
Well, solar can be helpful at certain times, yes, because it helps to cut back on how much, even when the grid supply is on. If you have domestic solar panels installed, you can cut back on how much you depend on the grid, and it's very helpful. And so, yes, you can get it. They are a little expensive at the initial stage, but when you buy it, you get a benefit out of it. Yeah.
Well, I say thank you, really. Thank you for your time. Thank you for allowing us to invade this beautiful place. Thank you.
Thank you, too, for coming, and we hope to do more in future.
Okay, I was going to say, you hope that we'll come again. Well, hopefully we'll try to get some answers for a lot of the questions that you have on your mind. The biggest one, though, when is Dum Sor going to end? Well, that is if we get a lot more generation, and we're praying and hoping that that will happen sometime this year. We came to you from the Gridco Systems Control Center. I like to call it Mr. Frank Ottery's Control Center. We want to say thank you to Gridco, really. Thank you to the boss, Mr. William Amuna, and all the beautiful people here in this particular department who have been so nice to us. We'll come your way somewhere sometime soon. My name is Mama Vioso Abwade.